Okay. Um, excuse me. The first is a very quick wrap up of our online discussion. The second is to talk a little bit more about the role of government in a market economy. And the third, because some people are impatient, and I won't name her, a little bit about the exam coming up. That wasn't you, Jamie, in case you were wondering. Okay. um, the punchline from our online discussion is that government is a cooperative arrangement among people to give up some rights in return for protection and other services. You guys did a pretty good job with that. One way that we can measure the role of government in an economy is by looking at the government budget. And so what I did is put on the course outline. Let me see if I can find it there. If you go to week 9, and I'm not going to show you just because I'm sure you can do this. I added 2 links. One is a link to the federal budget, actually a page off of the economic report of the president that shows the consolidated federal budget, and one is to state and local budgets. So if you take a look at those, you can see where our tax dollars go, and what the source of those tax dollars is. This is true both at the federal level and also at the state and local level. You should definitely take a look because you want to be responsible citizens, of course, and also because you can expect to see some of those things on the next exam. The kinds of questions that I would ask would be fairly broad questions. Hey, Mar.
Hello.
What fraction of the federal budget is spent on defense spending or on Social Security, something like that. So you should know what the big ticket items are in the federal budget and also the state and local budgets. You should be able to answer questions like, how much do we spend on foreign aid? The answer is a very tiny amount, less than 1%. I'm always, it always amuses me when people running for office or even elected officials say, they're gonna go after waste and inefficiency in some budget or another budget. That's usually a sign that they don't really have a strong idea about what they would do, because waste and efficiency is something that everyone can agree should be gotten rid of. If it were that easy, it would have been taken out of the budget a long time ago. But anyway, so moving right along. Even in an otherwise market economy, there is a role for government to play. Minimally, government should support the rule of law and enforce contracts. Otherwise, markets don't work very well. If you think that this isn't important, consider the role of corruption in developing countries and maybe even developed countries. Government corruption certainly benefits those individuals who are getting payments and things like that. But it makes economies work worse and societies work less optimal as well. So at a minimum, government needs to support the rule of law and enforce contracts. In addition to that, there are some things that markets don't do very well, and I want to spend a few minutes talking about those things. Goods can be described as either private goods or public goods or somewhere in between. A private good is like an apple. You buy it, you get to eat it. If you eat it, no one else gets the apple at the same time. Or I guess we could say Halloween candy works the same way. On the other extreme are what we call public goods. Public goods are not things that are provided by the government. Saying something is a public good. Abby, you made it.
Sorry.
You want to give this part of the lecture? We're talking about public goods.
Well, I can listen. I know about it now.
Okay, then. Public goods have two characteristics. The first characteristic is they are non-excludable, and the second characteristic is that they are non-rival. Non-excludable means that once they're provided at all, they're provided for everybody. You can't keep people out. Okay. Non-rival means that your consumption of a public good doesn't in any way limit my consumption of the public good. Once it's there, it's available for everybody. The problem, if you want to call it that, the problem with public goods is they are underprovided by the market. Public goods tend to be big ticket items, and no rational individual is going to pay the cost of these big ticket items unless the benefits exceed the costs, and the benefits of public goods tend to be diffuse rather than accruing to the individual who pays for them. And so public goods tend not to be provided at all by the market. Let me give you an example. The classic example of a public good is something like national defense. Once we provide nuclear deterrence at all, it's provided for everybody within our country. And one more person doesn't increase the cost of nuclear deterrence because it's there for everybody. Okay. Similarly, the cost of providing national defense is so large that no one individual is willing to pay for it, probably. Okay. That brings up another issue, and that is the free rider problem. People know that once a public good is provided, the owner can't prevent other people from enjoying it at the same time. So it's the natural tendency for people to hope that Rose will pay for this and then I get it for free. Okay. Since many people tend to think that way, the result is that no one is rationally willing to pay for something because they're hoping someone else will do it so that they can get it for them. This is what's known as a collective action problem. We all collectively realize that this is something that we need and that we ought to be willing to pay for it, but none of us individually is willing to sort of take the first step. And so government can step in here in a way that private folks can't, and simply require us to pay taxes. And in return, we get national defense for that. Okay. So the bottom line here is that while markets supply the right amount of private goods, they will undersupply public goods. And in fact, they often won't supply public goods at all, just because it doesn't make any sense. Even conservatives recognize that providing enough public goods is going to require some role for government to do that. Okay. In between private goods and public goods are things that you might call quasi-public, which means they have some of the characteristics, but not all of the characteristics of public goods. Or to put it another way, these are products that have positive externalities or external benefits, which is to say that that your consumption spills over and has positive impacts on people around you. Okay, so what that means is that once again, the market will underprovide the amount of these externality goods or quasi-public goods, because the market only supplies as much as people are willing to pay, despite the fact that there are people who would benefit but who would rather get the stuff for free. Okay, so again, these externality goods tend to be underprovided by the market. Okay, the best example that I can think of, the one that we used today in class, was flu shots. Okay, when Abby gets a flu shot, that benefits me because I'm not going to catch the flu from her. Okay, so the benefit to the class of one of us getting a flu shot goes further than just the person getting the flu shot. All right. Because of these external benefits, because markets tend to underprovide these goods, government can step in and subsidize the production of this stuff, so that by subsidizing flu shots, more people get flu shots than would without the subsidy. And so we end up with something closer to the right amount of flu shots. Does that make sense? Rose, did you get your flu shot, Rose?
I did get my flu shot.
Good. Yeah, it works for me. Okay. In addition to that, there are government programs that involve transfer payments, right? A transfer payment is a program where the government takes money from one group of people and gives it to another group of people. The example that the class came up with today was Social Security. Social Security takes money from people who are currently working and delivers it to people who are currently not working, people who worked in the past, retired people, basically. Okay, all the things that we think of as welfare are transfer programs. Oftentimes, but not always, transfer programs operate under the Robin Hood principle of take from the rich and give to the poor. But in the real world, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it works in reverse. Whereas government providing public goods and externality goods is justified on the basis of efficiency, transfer programs are done on the basis of equity, fairness. The idea with something like the welfare system is that we're a rich country, and we ought to share a little bit of our well-being with the people who are less well off. So that's a fairness argument. Exactly where you draw the line is a difficult question. It's a normative issue. We can all differ on where that line should be, but that's the basic idea. There are two other things that government does that affect the economy. One is regulation of businesses. We know that at the federal, state, and local levels, there are government regulations, government regulatory authorities. The reasons for government regulation include public safety, efficiency, consumer protection, all kinds of those sorts of things. And then the last thing that government does, and something that's really important to our class, is called stabilization policy. Basically, it is the responsibility that the government has to manage the economy as a whole. For much of the rest of the semester, we're going to be looking at government stabilization policy in detail. For now, it's enough that you just know that that's a responsibility of government. The idea is that government should try to minimize recessions, reduce the amount of unemployment, promote economic growth, and prevent inflation. Those are kind of the main goals of government stabilization policy. Okay, so that's the role of government in a nutshell. Anybody have any questions about that? I know I kind of ran through it really quickly. Okay, so in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from Friday, we're going to be doing our next exam. It's going to be very similar in format to the previous exam. It's going to be 30 multiple choice questions. All the same basic rules apply. You'll have a 24-hour window to do it. Once you start, you'll have an hour, actually a little more than an hour. And it will cover all the material on the course outline up until this point. So that is topic 5, a first look at the macroeconomy. Topic 6, how do you tell the state of the economy? And topic 7, the role of government. In terms of modules, it is the first 2 modules on macroeconomic measures, and a large part of the modules on fiscal policy. That is the ones dealing with the federal budget and the state and local budget. There are a few other things that are on the reading list that you should, or on the course outline that you should be aware of, but that is basically it. Okay, we will spend the Thursday the, let's see, is it the 14th, I think? The week before, no, the week before the exam. So that would be, I think, the 7th. So next Thursday, we will spend a lot of time talking about the exam in detail. So you should start reviewing the material and figure out what it is you're not clear on so that we can talk about that next week. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Greenlaw.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like we're done then. So have a good evening and go back to your trick-or-treating. And I hope you give at least as well as you get. Bye now.